Okay, it's 12 noon. This is a regular assembly meeting. It's November 4th, 2024. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jay,
Here.
Bob Lynn,
Here.
Rob,
Here.
Donna. Here. James.
Here.
Mark,
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a full assembly today, and before we get started, I'll mention that Assembly Member Newman needs to leave around 1:30. He's got a trip he has to make, so with that being said, it's now time for the voluntary pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Liberty and justice for all. Okay, now item 3 on the agenda, it's time for approval of the minutes from our October 21st, 2024 assembly meeting. Approval of the minutes, I'd entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hear none. Okay, now it's time for a motion to amend or approve today's meeting agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting as presented.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. There's no proposed changes. All those in favor of continuing like the agenda is presented to us, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move forward. Item 5, public hearings. We have 2 public hearings today. First public hearing is for ordinance 2024-19. This is an ordinance amending chapter 4.30 of the Petersburg Municipal Code, Alaska Remote Seller Sales Tax Code. Any public testimony regarding this ordinance should be given during this public hearing. Is there anyone zooming in?
There's no one.
Okay, so anybody in the audience want to participate in this public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. The next public hearing is for ordinance 2024-20. This is an ordinance amending chapter 14.30, Mountain View Manor Elderly Housing and Assisted Living Facility, to institute a new assisted living community facility fee to be used for the facility maintenance and repair, to require that 2-bedroom assisted living units be occupied by 2 residents, and to increase certain fees. Is there anyone that would like to participate in this public hearing? Seeing none, that public hearing is also closed. And there's another public hearing, and that's on ordinance 2024-21. This is an ordinance amending chapter 16.16, Tidelands of the Petersburg Municipal Code to provide for updated provisions regarding the disposal of tidelands and submerged lands. So now it's time to participate in this public hearing if you wish. Seeing none, that public hearing is also closed. Item 6, bid awards. There are no bid awards today. So item 7, persons to be heard related to items on today's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on items on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to persons to be heard on items not on today's agenda. Is there anyone that would wish to speak on items not on today's agenda? Seeing any interest there either. So no reports from board, commission, and committee reports, no consent agenda items. That brings us to report of other officers. And first off will be U.S. Forest Service update from our Petersburg District Ranger Case.
Hey, good afternoon. I wanted to come and introduce myself, although I think I know most of you in some capacity or other, but my name's Carrie Case. I'm the acting district ranger right now for the Petersburg Ranger District. Ray Bourne, who you guys have all met, I'm sure many times, retired. He lives in Hawaii now, so good for him. And I'm stepping in for him for the next few months. And the job is being flown, so eventually you'll have somebody permanent, hopefully this late winter. And I wanted to start off with saying thank you for the support for the Thomas Bay stewardship proposal. Appreciate that letter of support very much. And I wanted to let you also know that our last day in our downtown office is going to be next Thursday, 14th. And then we'll be moving out to the Harris Building at that point in time. We'll be open, we'll have our front desk open Monday, the 18th there. So we'll start the moving process and hopefully within 2 years, we will be back downtown. So that's all I had to provide for you right now. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Yep.
Now that brings us to a report from Petersburg Medical Center CEO, Mr. Hofstadter.
Good afternoon, Phil Hofstadter, Petersburg Medical Center CEO. Submitted my reports, pretty standard for this month. A few items to highlight. One is we had our annual leadership retreat with managers a couple of weeks ago, and we evaluated our strategic plan and plan for this upcoming year and setting some goals and priorities. This of note for this week, I want to thank Brandy Boggs. She is putting on what we call asset protection and planning training, and this is in the library, at local library. She had 2 sessions, and what this is really about planning for long-term care. We all know long-term care can be very expensive, uncovered by insurance, and often have to spend down your assets in order to get onto Medicaid. So that's not the only course of action. If you plan ahead, these are things that you can protect. So we want to make sure that we have that strategy in place and that training. And I want to, the next session is on Thursday, 11/7, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And then again on Saturday, November 9th from 3 to 4:30. Highly encourage people to attend those. It's very informative and very helpful. So again, thank you to Brandy Boggs for putting that on. And then lastly is a work session at the last board meeting. We have to meet annually, and we did discuss maybe the 3rd week in January, maybe after the 13th. I believe most of our board members will be available for a potential work session. So I'll put that out there for conversation if you'd like. Any questions?
Questions of Mr. Hofstadter? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hofstadter, for
Thank you.
your update. Okay, that brings us to the mayor's report. Borough is seeking letters of interest. We're accepting letters of interest from citizens who wish to serve the community as board member to the Southeast Alaska Power Agency for calendar year 2025. The Borough Assembly will appoint 1 voting member and 1 alternate to the SEPA board for this next year. Letters of interest should be submitted to Clerk Thompson at the Borough offices located at 12 South Nordic Drive, or by sending to Post Office Box 329, Petersburg, Alaska, 99833, or by emailing to dthompson@petersburgak.gov. The Borough is also seeking letters of interest from citizens who wish to serve the community by filling one of the vacant seats on the following borough boards until October 25th municipal election. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, there's 1 vacant seat, as well as 1 vacant seat on the Planning Commission. And to apply for either of those positions, send it to the same address I just gave you, to Debbie Thompson, our clerk. Also, I'd like to add, today is the last day to vote early until 4 p.m. And then tomorrow is the general election. So I encourage everybody to get out and vote, do your civic duty. So that's it for the mayor's report. I'll turn it over to Manager Giesbrecht.
Thank you, sir. Parks and Rec staff are working with Netwell Noise Control for the purchase and tile removal of the acoustic tiles. They're starting to fail, and we've had a couple of them fall. Halloween Hustle was on Thursday, and the pumpkin plunge was great. We had 46 pumpkins, 46 people, and at one point, all of them in the pool. So worked out pretty good. Stephanie will be conducting a first aid CPR AED course for the crew of the Elderberry, end of November, beginning of December. And the dive-in movie nights are in full swing. Check with Parks and Rec for the upcoming dates. Lifeguard course scheduled for November 2nd to the 24th. If you're interested, you must attend all 3 days plus 6 hours of online course prior to the class. Leave your name and contact information with Parks and Rec if you're interested. Stephanie has been invited to speak at the Land Manager Forum in Anchorage to discuss the borough's partnership with PIA on various projects. And our power and light mechanic has recently traveled to Houston, Texas to witness the testing of the new EMD 3.5 megawatt diesel generator. Testing went very well, and we believe the generator will be a great addition to the power generation fleet. Power and Light has installed a temporary transformer at the work project and has ordered a permanent unit for the site. Anticipated delivery on the permanent transformer is June of 2025. And yeah, we have to order that far in advance. Power and Light has been made aware of the potential for a new industrial customer and is researching and evaluating a data center company to see if this business would be a good fit to add power sales and decrease rate pressures on other customers. PEDC is also discussing this possibility. Carl recently met with PIA's tribal administrator and finance director to discuss Department of Energy funded tribal grid resilience grant that the entities are partnering on. Library has reopened on Mondays for regular hours. And John McCabe, former Petersburg resident and retired teacher, has donated $1,000 to the Petersburg Library Art Education Endowment this year. His total contributions to date are $199,540. The annual interest earnings provide a stable, ongoing funding source to enhance arts programming at the library. In the upcoming year, earnings from the fund will be used to host painting, drawing, writing, and music workshops at the library for all ages. Thanks to Petersburg artists Marianne Rainey and Pia Riley for hosting ornament making classes at the library for the Capitol Christmas tree in Washington, D.C. Currently, our EMT1 initial class has 11 participants in the course. The course at the time of this reading will be 3/4 of the way through. Thanks to all of the participants for sticking with this month-long course on nights and weekends. As winter sets in, please take care to inspect heat tapes, heat lamps, stovepipes, and other heating equipment to ensure they are in proper working order. Make sure any heating appliance is clear from any combustible material. And should you have need to clean a stovepipe, the fire department loans out chimney brushes and ladders. Contact the fire station at 772-3355 for more information. FEMA has finished awarding its assistance to firefighters grants for 2023. Only 2 departments in Alaska, Gustavus and Ketchikan, received the awards. Although the AFG did not come through, Volunteer Fire Department would like to thank the Assembly for their support in using Title III funding to replace some of our worn out turnout gear. Hydrant winterization is complete. After getting the go-ahead from the police department, our Public Works crew removed 4 derelict vessels, a skiff trailer, and an old boat engine from the Papke's boat launch parking area. Martin and his crew have finished most of the site work to expand the parking lot and improve visibility at the Ravens Roof's trailhead. The new pedestrian crosswalk will be painted in the spring when the weather permits. Motor pool staff are starting on the vehicle inspection process for the upcoming FY26 budget. Any vehicles that are scheduled for replacement in FY26 will be brought into the shop and fully evaluated, and then either extended or recommended for replacement based on the results of the inspections. Operations at the baler were disrupted last week when the waste oil system day tank overflowed and resulted in an oil leak inside the baling facility. Although there was some oil-related damage to the office area, we were able to contain the leak quickly and resume normal operations at the baler after a 2-day closure to do some mitigation work. Big thank you to other departments who pitched in to help, including streets, wastewater, and building maintenance. Harbor Maintenance is installing several new ladders to aid in rescue of people who could potentially fall into the harbor. And staff are looking into a new fender system to help protect in-water utilities from the big bows on some of the ships. OSHA has sent a letter to let everyone know they are doing inspections on assisted living. The borough will take advantage of their consultation program at assisted living, which will help with future audits by OSHA. And OSHA assisted living will start working on their state inspection next month. It will be a desktop inspection rather than in person. They are also in the middle of the Medicaid audit, which is due by December 31st. And that's it. Most questions.
Or any assembly members have questions of the manager on this report? Member Marsh.
I do. Mr. Manager, through the mayor, could you explain the tribal PIA, tribal administrator discussion with the tribal grid resilience grant?
Can I call on Carl? He's probably better apt to explain it.
Through the mayor. Yeah, so this grant opportunity was born out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it's a 5-year cycle of formula monies that are going out to virtually every tribe in the country. It's non-competitive money. It's just sitting there waiting for the tribes to apply for it. And it's meant to reduce outages or enhance the ability to recover from outages. Lots of tribes, in fact, probably all tribes, don't really deal in grid operation and maintenance. So as part of the grant, it is recommended that they partner with their local utility to put this money to use. And so that's what the discussion is. At this point, because of the turnover at PIA in the last year or so, we were able to apply for the first, well, actually the second, third year of the program. That total pot of money is about $270,000. Power and Light will supply the 15% match. So the overall amount of money available for resiliency projects will be about $312,000 at this point. There's still 2 more years, 2 more fiscal years to apply. And we haven't decided on the actual projects that will be done with that money yet. That will involve the tribal council and some recommendations from Power and Light. But it's a great program, and PIA has been very open to partnering on this and helping the utility come up with some projects and good use of this money.
A follow-up question to that is, so there's a matching element
There is,
that is, so I guess utilities are enterprise funds. Is that where the funds will come from, or how do you foresee that?
yes, through the mayor, that's exactly where it come from. We did budget for a match, a 15% match to the grant funds. And it was approved in the budget process.
Perfect. Any other questions of the manager today on his report? Seeing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. Item A, ordinance 2024-17. This is an ordinance amending various sections, excuse me, of chapter 4.28 of the Petersburg Municipal Code and the definitions and rules regarding particular businesses and to specify sales tax exemptions required by law. This is the third and final reading. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its third reading.
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made by Member Marsh, seconded by Member Newman, I believe. Discussion. Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Bob,
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if that ordinance passes unanimously, its third and final reading. That brings us to ordinance 2024-18, an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2025 budget for known changes. This is the third and final reading. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its third reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made by Member Stanton Gregor, seconded by Member Valentine. And as you see, there is a proposed amendment. Member Stanton Gregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move to decrease the fire department additional vehicle insurance cost from 41,954 to 26,271, which is a reduction of 15,683.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made with a second on this amendment. And are those numbers correct? I believe they are. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Clerk call the roll on the amendment.
Bob,
Yes,
Rob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us back to the main motion as amended, and this is for ordinance 2024-18. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by Member Newman, seconded by Member Marsh. Any discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Donna,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, that brings us to ordinance 2024-19. This is an ordinance amending chapter 4.30 of the Petersburg Municipal Code, Alaska Remote Sales Tax Code. This is the second reading. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its second reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made by member Newman, seconded by member Schwartz. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Donna,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jay, Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that ordinance passes unanimously in its second reading. That brings us to item D, ordinance 2024-20, an ordinance amending chapter 14.30 Mountain View Manor Elderly Housing and Assisted Living Facility to institute a new assisted living community facility fee to be used for facility maintenance and repair. To require that two-bedroom assisted living units be occupied by two residents and to increase certain fees. This is the second reading. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its second reading.
Mr. Mayor, can I propose an amendment to this? After we get this one. Very good. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by member Stanton Gregor, seconded by member Newman. Member Mark.
Thank you. I would propose an amendment to this regarding the $2,000 new resident facility maintenance fee. And the reason is somebody moves into assisted living, they need extra care. So if something were to happen, let's say within a window of 6 months, I would propose that there would be a refund prorated monthly. Let's say a resident moves in, pays the $2,000. I would say the assisted living could keep the first month, which would break it down as $333.33. But if they move out in month 3 or pass away or need a higher level of care and have to move on, it would make sense that that resident would then be allowed a refund rather than paying $2,000 for only staying there for 3 months. So I would propose that we adjust that there is a caveat for a refund prorated if they move on within 6 months.
Okay, so we'll take that as a motion. A second.
I second it.
Okay, so motion been made by member Marsh, seconded by member Valentine to prorate the $2,000 initial fee if you're moving into assisted living. If you're only there for, like you said, $333 a month, reduce it. So you don't pay the full 2,000 if you're only there for a short period of time. Any discussion on that amendment?
Would it be appropriate that we have Director Casey speak to that? His opinion?
Do you have any input, Director Casey, on this?
I think it would be a good idea because if they do move on to a better place or move out to another place, to another facility, that'd be more capable with what's going on. It would help with the transition and move into another facility or with, for instance, if they pass away, taking help and go towards those things. So I like the idea with the 6 month where it goes down. So that way, just in case something happens or they decide they don't like where they're living, it would help transitions.
Okay, any other discussion on this amendment? Do you have the amendment clearly written down? Clerk?
Yes, I do. This amendment would provide for prorating the $2,000 facility fee if within the first 6 months, the resident moves out of the facility, and it would be prorated.
Stated, so if there's no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Rob,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
James. Thank you.
Okay, that amendment passes unanimously. That brings us back to the main motion as amended on ordinance 2024-20. Is there any other discussion on this ordinance? Clerk, call a roll on the motion as amended.
James,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Donna, Mark,
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that ordinance passes unanimously in its second reading, and that brings us to ordinance 2024-21, an ordinance amending chapter 16.16, tidelands of the Petersburg Municipal Code to provide for updated provisions regarding the disposal of tidelands and submerged lands. It's the second reading. Because of the economic value of Petersburg's tidelands is great, ordinance 2024-21 is written to provide that the sale of tidelands shall not be made for consideration less than the appraised full value, full and true value, rather than the assessed value, and to clarify the sale process to ensure any sale of tidelands is in the borough's best interest. If amended, if an amendment to section 1616-075C was made during the first reading to provide that the harbor chair shall notify the clerk if the harbor board cannot provide a timely report to the assembly regarding a tideland purchase application. Ordinance 2024-21 was unanimously approved as amended in its first reading. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its second reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made by member Newman, seconded by member Schwartz. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Member Lynn.
Yep. In section A3 of that ordinance, it talks about paying for the costs. And one of the item talks about that the propellant or the proponent, not propellant, of should pay upfront costs based on the title, based on other things, in addition to paying a $500 down fee. I question that for a couple reasons. One is that we don't know all those costs up front. Two, that when I went back and looked at this ordinance, I can't see any place where if there's a second applicant, or if in the process you get 2 or 3 applicants, which we haven't had in the past that I know of, where that should be refunded, although that is our policy we have refunded in the past. With that, I would ask the clerk for her interpretation of this. I think it'd be better if it was worded in such a way that there was some kind of a, I won't call it a down payment, but money in a fund to pay for this, which then could be decided later on of what the full amount is or how it could be worded. But at any rate, if I could, would the clerk, I'd ask the clerk to weigh in if she would, please.
I'd like to ask Clerk Thompson to weigh in. She has more familiarity with this.
Okay, Clerk Thompson, do you have input?
Yes. Okay, so as this section of the code is written, it's 1616-075A3. I think it's on page, if you guys want to look at it here real quick, hang on. Page 53. The way it's written right now, the clerk is supposed to estimate the costs of advertising the sale, of the title report, of a survey, if a survey is needed, and then collect those costs from the applicant. If it also says at the end of this, the last sentence, all costs paid to the borough hereunder are non-refundable, excepting that if the actual costs are less than estimated, the borough will refund the applicant the difference. So if it goes to public sale, just because you apply for a piece of property doesn't mean you're the only person that gets to bid on it. If it goes to a public sale, anybody can come in and bid. They haven't filled out an application, they haven't paid the $500 fee, and they haven't paid all of these estimated costs. The applicant has. If the applicant gets outbid by someone, it doesn't really seem fair that the one person who stuck their neck out to apply to purchase the property has to pay all the fees and then doesn't get the property in the end. So maybe if we could rewrite that section saying that there could be a deposit maybe for these costs by the applicant. That deposit would not be put in the bank. It would be held by the clerk until the sale is over. And then whoever purchases the property pays the costs in addition to the purchase price. If that makes sense.
It does, and in that case, if someone put money in, they didn't get the property, they would be refunded, and the person that gets the property pays the full fee.
Yes, the only part that would not be refunded would be the $500 application fee. You pay that when you file the application. But all of these costs of the sale, we would give the deposit back to the applicant if they didn't win the property. And whoever did win the property, they would pay the costs on top of whatever their prices they are willing to pay for the property.
Stan Gregor? No, I thought I saw you raise your
I
hand.
know I was giving Debbie that makes sense sign. No, I hear you.
Any other discussion on this change and how will we go about, we have to make an amendment now to change the language, or can we do that in the third reading?
You can, if you would like to just direct the clerk's office to reword it a little bit and bring it back to you in the third reading.
That might be cleaner, and then we'll have something we could, read as a proposed motion, and the language will be more correct than us trying to muddle through it today, probably.
Makes sense.
So at this point, I guess, if there's no other discussion on this ordinance, we will vote on it as is, and then we'll have an amended version in the third reading. Member Marsh?
Okay, related to this discussion, do we have an estimation on the cost associated with the sale outside of the original $500 application fee? And the reason why I'm asking that is, so applicant A pays the 500, and then it goes to public auction. Member B, whoever he is, decides that he's gonna bid and he gets the property. So A would still have supplied that $500. B is gonna pay for all the rest. But is there some equitability in that? Can you give some estimated costs on what those might add up to?
I can. Usually I can estimate, how many mailings we have to send. I can estimate the cost of the newspaper ads that we have to do for 2 weeks in a row. It already says in a different area that because it's tidelands, it has to be appraised. That's separate, and the purchaser or the applicant actually pays those appraisal costs. Oh, we need to look at that too. The $500 fee will not be refundable, but these things listed in 075A3 could be given back. And yes, I can usually come pretty close on an estimate, but another way to go, if we don't, I could provide an estimate for the sale, but maybe we want to say something along the lines of, $1,000 deposit. And then that's held until the sale is done. I don't know. I'll think about it a little bit and try to bring forward some options.
Any other discussion on the second reading of this ordinance? And we'll look forward to the amended version in 2 weeks. So will the clerk call the roll?
Jay,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
James, Donna,
Yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Rob.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2024-21 passes unanimously in its second reading with changes to be provided at the third reading. Brings us to item 15, new business. First item under new business, ordinance 2024-22, an ordinance clarifying that property obtained by foreclosure in which the assembly determines to sell is exempt from sale procedures and requirements of Petersburg Municipal Code, Chapter 16.12 and 16.16. If this ordinance is adopted by the assembly in 3 readings, will clarify that the procedures and requirements of the code chapters 1612 and 1616 do not apply to the disposal and sale of property obtained by the borough in foreclosure proceedings. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its first reading.
Second.
Motion been made by member Stanton Gregor, seconded by member Schwartz. Discussion. Member Stanton Gregor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. After speaking with the clerk and the finance director, this makes sense to me, but I was wondering if Director Tao could briefly speak to this issue, because I'll be voting yes for this, but it's for those listening at home, it might be good to know why we're doing this one differently in terms of foreclosure sales?
Sure. So historically, when we foreclose on a property due to owing property taxes, well, first we ask the assembly whether they want to keep the piece of property. And if they do not and want to sell it, then it goes out to public auction. And historically, we've set the price at assessed value and then plus additional expenses, for advertising and things like that. The reason why I'm doing this is because we've been modifying chapter 16, which you guys just voted on. And if we don't exempt it from this, it's going to add on a lot of other costs. I'm going to have to get the property appraised and all these other things, which I don't think we want to do, because what happens when we sell a property that's been foreclosed on at public auction, we get the money and we apply it to owing property taxes, and then we give the rest of the money to the past owner of whoever we foreclosed on. But they're not going to get very much money if we, have to pay for an appraisal and a survey and all these other things. So that's why I want to add this exemption to the ordinance.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other discussion or questions? Clerk, call the roll.
James,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2024-22 passes unanimously in its first reading. That brings us to another new ordinance, and that's 2024-23. An ordinance amending chapter 14.20 of the Petersburg Municipal Code, Municipal Harbors, to adopt provisions regarding inactive vessels. If adopted in 3 readings, this ordinance will impose storage fees, a marine condition survey of the vessel in question, and proof of insurance on vessels in the harbors that are deemed inactive. I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its first reading.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Marsh, seconded by Member Schwartz, I believe. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Member Lynn.
Yes, I have a couple questions, but the first one is under item A under there, why is there a distinction? We say in there, accepting that a vessel of 32 feet in length or less, I'm trying to read my notes here, without sleeping accommodations must have remained absent. Anyway, where I'm going with this is that I don't understand the distinction between a vessel over 32 feet and a vessel under 32 feet without under 32 feet without sleeping accommodations. Why shouldn't they be the same? And that's just a question.
Harbor Master Wolin, I think I might be able to answer it, but you probably can better than I.
Thank you, through the mayor. We were trying to accommodate those vessels that might just be going out sport fishing for the day. Or we do have a few people that live on boats that are 20 feet, 22 feet, 26 feet, that there's a couple that don't move. And so it's in that, it's that classification of vessel, boat that would go out on day trips and not necessarily go out overnight. So that's where we came up with the idea of you can maybe take 4 8-hour trips or 3 8-hour trips, 4 6-hour trips, and still accommodate this rule.
So even vessels under 32 feet, if they didn't permanently in the harbor, say they didn't leave at all, then they're still can have the moorage or the storage fee imposed
Yeah.
on them, et cetera.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
If they're not an
Sports.
active vessel, if you got a
And that's
20
why there's a distinction with, are there bunks in it or not?
Yeah, exactly. Like we have, open crab skiffs, things like that. Well, if they're sitting in the harbor for 8 years, never leaving the harbor, they can be just as much of a derelict or, become a problem as a boat that has accommodations aboard. So.
Any other discussion on this ordinance?
Yep. I have another question, Mr. Mayor.
Member Lynn?
Yeah, under this ordinance, we talk about, we lay out some details about what we would do at the end of a first year, a second year, and a third year of a vessel, you know, or a progressive decline, I guess, or if a vessel doesn't move. But one of the things that bothers me, up front, we say that in the preamble, that our objective is we have over 100 applications for space in there. But yet it takes us 3 years to, actually to determine whether a vessel is derelict or not, or whether it needs to be moved. But more importantly then, is it seems to me that if a vessel hasn't been moved in 1 year, it seems to me that at that point, we need to have some kind of proof of insurance on that boat, a proof of indemnity, you know, that we're asking for at the end of the third year. Because I don't think that the people of Petersburg should be paying for something that's sitting there. I think we need to have some more promise of, you know, that we have a way out of this. We know, all of us, 7 of us know that what the cost of that demolishing that derelict vessel was. So I'm thinking that maybe on the second reading, and I need to talk to Glo, but I'd really like to move part of the third part of that into the number 1 after the first year. Thank you.
Any input from
Well,
Pastor Wallen?
Yeah, we, you know, there are a lot of harbors around the world and a lot of harbors within the state that go straight to the insurance clause, you know, requiring insurance. And I guess I just, you know, I tried to soften it a bit. I've been thinking about this for a lot of years, and we have a considerable group, a customer base that are self-insured. And a lot of those are gill netters, a lot of those are trollers that that don't have that insurance portion that we could, you know, probably run out of the harbor. So that's where we kind of softened this this rule to accommodate for that. I understand what you're saying. I do have a couple of boats in the harbor that are, you know, if you looked at them, they're $1 million yachts, and they've had issues, you know, personal issues, and haven't been able to untie for the year and have all the insurance needed and things like that, but they would fall into this category. And I still believe, I stand behind it, thinking that, you know, there is a rationale for charging a vessel that isn't moving a little bit more, because those boats that do move, we are able to sublet, and, you know, 20% of our revenue is based on that transient fleet that can have a spot to tie up. So, you know, whatever boat we're talking about, we don't have a lot of, you know, derelicts in that category at all. I can't think of any in that category, but they don't move. And so I believe that they should be charged a storage fee. We're going to call it a storage fee, so it's easily removable if they can prove otherwise. For not moving, because the boat beside them that is moving and we're able to, you know, turn a profit on for those transients, you know, I guess if you want to look at, pay a little less, or you know, you pay a little bit more for not moving. So that's where that came into, those 3 steps came into play as I visited with the attorney for the last couple years over this. This has been a long time coming. I've been talking about it with the harbor board for a number of years, with Steve for a number of years, and with our attorney, and this is kind of what came out of. And I felt like it was a good time to bring it up, since we did just have 4 vessels removed from our harbor at a cost. So.
Member Lynn, do you have a follow-up first?
No, no, I want to talk to Glo, and I may want to change, but for now I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Member Swartz?
So as written, thumbs up. All right.
We're hoping that you will help us see light at the end of the tunnel here.
Your wheelhouse.
And like always, remember people listening or people in the audience that we have two more readings. Second reading has a public hearing, so people at Renton Harbor have time to come and give their input. So hope if they have an issue, they can come and voice it. If there's no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on first reading of 2024-23.
Scott,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donna, Mark,
Yes.
Jay, Bob,
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item C under new business. This is an application to purchase borough-owned property at 1020 Sandy Beach Road. Parcel ID number 01-014-700. Ron and Ann Loesch have applied to purchase borough-owned property located at 1020 Sandy Beach Road. Parcel is assessed at $129,300 and is currently zoned rural residential, which requires a minimum lot size of 1 acre and is intended for 1 single-family home per acre. Conditional uses in the rural residential zoning district include mobile homes and mobile home parks. The immediate surrounding area is zoned single-family residential for public use. I'd entertain a motion to approve this application.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to initiating a rezone of the property to single-family residential prior to the disposal of this property.
When we have to, in the past, I think we've always made a motion in the positive to move forward with as presented on the agenda, and then we could amend it. Does that make sense?
Sure, then so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Member Stan Greger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would propose an amendment. We should rezone the property to single-family residential prior to disposal of said property. If I get a second, I'll talk about my reasoning.
Second.
Motion been made by Member Stanton Greger, seconded by Member Marsh to rezone this property. Member Stanton Greger.
Yeah, thank you. I glad the Lush family came forward wanting to buy this property. It makes sense for them being near theirs. But as is stated in right now, it is zoned rural residential. This goes back into the archives a little bit of 2019 when we were doing some proposed rezoning of many things around Petersburg. And some of the feedback we had at the time was concerns about potential of, let's say, trailer parks and residential neighborhoods on Sandy Beach. Whether that concern was valid or not is secondary, but currently as is zoned as rural residential, that could be a use of that. And as is written in here, all neighboring properties are single-family residential. And I imagine 40 years ago, that might have been rural residential as things were quieter out there, but it's pretty clear that's a residential neighborhood. And I think that'd be more consistent with the zoning of the neighborhood. That's my rationale.
Any other input on the amendment to rezone before selling the property? Member Newman.
I disagree with that. And the reason I say that is when you look at the rural residential, it's 98,000 square feet. And if it's subdivided, then it can only be subdivided in 1 acre lots. Whereas if it's changed to single family residential, it could be up to 6 to 8 lots, I think it was.
2 to 6, but yeah.
2 to 6, thank you, stand corrected. So I think keeping it rural residential is more in keeping with the surrounding area of the neighborhood. And then to change it would be counter to that. Not only that, the Lushes are the ones that are applying for this, and it's their desire to keep it as it is. So in keeping with, the proposed purchaser of the land and what they want, I would prefer to accommodate that.
Any other input on this amendment to rezone this property? Member Marsh.
I can see benefits of both. However, I think we run risk when we specifically change a designation based on, not, well, let's see. I don't know if it's a good idea to change because we have a buyer, the zoning of a parcel. Whereas if we were consistent throughout the area of the Sandy Beach parcels, if we rezoned all of them, that might make more sense, or apportion them up to, you know, this section of land versus just a parcel. I could see that it would make sense either way, because in keeping with the nature of the neighborhood as it exists, whether it was single-family residential or rural residential, I think we could still arrive at the same destination.
Then we have to consider, I think, the recommendations that were given to us by the planning commission, and they gave the following report, maybe, or PC director, Liz Cabrera could correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like 4 items here, and but they say the property, subject property is not needed for any public purpose. Subject property is zoned as required by code. The applicant has no plans for development, but if the property is sold, that could change, I would imagine. The Assembly should consider initiating a rezone of the property to single-family residential prior to the disposal. Single-family residential zoning would not require subdivision of the parcel, but it would be more in keeping with surrounding uses of the neighborhood. Allowing for development that is consistent with the neighborhood and allow the option for future subdivision of the property into 2 to 6 lots. So what are your thoughts on this, Ms. Cabrera?
I generally look at it, I have probably a longer term view than most in terms of what's in the best interest of the borough. I think if there are utilities close by, we should be rezoning that all into single family residential because it can hold a higher density of dwellings than rural residential. Rural residential, we should reserve for areas where we don't have water and sewer, where you want a larger minimum lot size to accommodate an on-site septic system. This lot is zoned that way. It's a remnant from the 1984 comprehensive plan that actually recommended half-acre minimum lot sizes for rural residential, smaller than what we have, and only single-family uses, none of the mobile home type uses. So what ended up happening and being in code is kind of different than what they were envisioning when they did the comp plan and recommended this be rural residential. I think when we're looking at housing and land development, there is not a lot of public land with road access and utilities right there. And if we're looking at encouraging development, the borough should say, this is what we think the highest and best use of this land is, and that's what you do through the zoning process.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Any other discussion on the amendment to rezone this property before sale?
I have a question for Liz Cabrera.
Member Newman, yeah.
Thank you. I had a conversation with one of the neighbors and it was brought up that part of this property has like building restrictions on it from the FAA because it's in line with the approach on runway 23. Can you have?
It used to be a larger lot, and the back half of that lot was subdivided off, and there's an easement, a no-build easement on that for that exact reason, because the FAA required that. So the lot as it is totally buildable. It was already cut in half. Does that,
Not.
the part that's not available for purchase
That's okay. This
been
is-
cut off, yeah.
So a part of this property that's proposed to sell is not within that.
Right, it was a much bigger parcel. It was subdivided into 2. Half of it went to the FAA easement, and the other half is the part that they're requesting to purchase.
I guess I just have one more comment to that end. When a pilot is on a short final to an approach, they're looking for a specific set of lights. And so if we have, I mean, who knows what would end up, you know, if it ends up becoming a trailer park and there's all kinds of lights, you know, I would be opposed to that. Or any, you know, even if there was 6 different lots with 6 different homes there with who knows what kind of lights would be potentially conflicting or distracting by a pilot on approach. I'm opposed to that's another reason why I'm opposed to changing the zoning to single-family residential rather than keeping it as it is to rural.
Okay, so we have an amendment before us before we consider selling this piece of property at 1020 Sandy Beach Road to rezone it to single-family residential. Any other discussion on that amendment?
I have a
Member
comment.
Valentine?
Thank you, Mayor. So there is a purchaser who doesn't necessarily have to subdivide it into up to 6, right? It can still stay within 226, right? So it would be up to the buyer in the long term to decide whether or not they want to subdivide into 6 or more, right? We're just wanting to rezone it before we sell, so the option is there, it seems like. And for me, as a younger person wanting a little growth for the community, I see the value of putting into single family so that, you know, Petersburg can grow and so on. But I also understand your point there too. So I go back and forth with this, but knowing that it would essentially be up to the future buyers to whether or not they want to sell it that way, it kind of falls on those buyers, whether or not they'll split it. So this is interesting, yeah. Anyways, thank you.
So, Liz, can you explain the process if we rezone this? Is that strictly a assembly decision, or does it have to go to planning and zoning again, and then back to us? So this could be a lengthy process, but could you please just give us clarification?
Sure, if you initiate a rezone, it would go back to the planning commission. They would have to hold a public hearing, and then they would make a recommendation back to you. And then it would be an ordinance, so it takes 3 readings. So it is a little bit of a process, yeah.
Now, for more clarification, maybe the Clerk Thompson could answer this. The borough doesn't necessarily have to direct sale it to the people that applied. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I am, but in the past, people have applied to buy property, but then it can go to an outcry auction, correct?
Yes, actually today, if the assembly decides to move this forward, this application forward in the process, you need to decide how it's going to move forward. So either by public sale, which could be outcry auction or sealed competitive bid, or by direct negotiations. But it's not just automatic direct negotiations, no.
That we have to, correct, we have, simply has to decide what procedure we're gonna use, but if we're looking at the value to the borough for selling this property, I mean, I think of, you know, outcry or auction is the way to generate the most income. So anyway, we're gonna now, if there's no other discussion, vote on the amendment presented to us to rezone this to single-family residential. Clerk, call the roll.
Rob,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Jay,
Yes.
Scott,
No.
James,
Yes.
Donna.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, the proposed amendment passes with a 5-2 vote with members Marsh and member Newman opposed to the rezoning. So we're back to the application to purchase as amended. Now we need to decide, I guess, if we're going to make a direct sale or public outcry or how we're going to do it. Member Stanton Gregor.
Mr. Mayor, I would propose when planning and zoning and whatever ordinances to sell are done, that we proceed by outcry auction.
Second to that.
second.
Second, okay, there's second by member Schwartz. Okay, discussion on that. To sell this property when it becomes saleable by outcry auction. Discussion on that. Clerk call the roll.
Donna,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Scott, Jay,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Yes.
Mark,
And-
Rob.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, member Marsh, was your vote a yes? Okay, so to sell this piece of property, it will be sold after the zoning gets changed at an outcry auction. That passed with a 6-1 vote with member Newman opposed. So, we've made our decision. Where are we now? That brings us to election of vice mayor. Chapter or Charter Section 2.05B provides that no later than the first regular meeting of the Assembly in November each year, the Assembly shall elect from its membership a vice mayor. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to elect member Marsh as vice mayor for the next year.
Second.
I can't make a motion. I'm entertaining someone to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to elect, member Marsh as vice mayor for the next year. Any discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Jay,
Nope.
Bob,
no,
Rob,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have voted and the vice mayor will be member Marsh for the next year. Now we're on to assembly member appointments. And to keep it easy, and if everybody agrees, I would like to keep, if I can find the list here, the appointments the same, except for the one, which is the Southeast Conference Representatives. Mayor Mark Jensen is the voting member and Assembly Member Thomas Fine Walsh. If anybody would be interested in being the second representative to Southeast Conference, we could put them in former member Thomas Fine Walsh's name. Is anybody interested?
I would.
Yep, go
Go
ahead.
I'll defer.
Okay. Southeast Conference, I will put my name out for that one.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. I don't see any other changes unless, we've got currently Alaska Municipal League Representative, Mayor Mark Jensen and Assembly Member Bob Lynn, liaison to the Harbor and Ports Advisory Board, Assembly Member Scott Newman, liaison to the Hospital Board, Assembly Member Bob Lynn, liaison to Public Safety Advisory Board, Assembly Member Rob Schwartz, elected official to the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Assembly Member Donna Marsh, and Early Childhood Education Task Force, Assembly Member Jay Stanton Greger. So with approval of the Assembly, I would like to make those appointments with the one change of Member Valentine being the second representative to Southeast Conference. So clerk call the roll.
We need a motion.
We do, oh, yeah, make a motion to make that happen. So
Moved.
Second. Motion's been made with the second. Any discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Rob,
yes,
Bob, Scott,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes unanimously, our assembly appointments. Brings us to communications. I didn't see any recent communications listed, but we don't make a habit of reading the communications. Oh, there is communications here. So to read the communications, just go to our borough website and you can read them there and look at the agenda and they'll be there. Next item is assembly discussion items, assembly member comments. I'd like to make a comment and I'd like to thank the people that went to the NRA dinner and supported our Devil's Thumb shooters. I don't know what percentage they get, but I believe just the live auction made like $35,000 or something on Friday. So, yeah, or Saturday, I guess it was. So, yeah, that's the only comment I have. Member Stanton Gregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as you touched upon in the mayor's report, if you have not voted early yet, I highly encourage you to do that civic duty tomorrow at the polls. Go vote for your candidate of choice. Please do it. Thanks.
Any other assembly members have comments?
I just want to thank Jake and his wife for all they did for the NRA, Friends of the NRA and the local shooting club. Thank you.
That brings us to recognitions. Are there any recognitions from the assembly members or staff? Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And ask if there's any opposed, but no one ever is. No.